Monica, do you have the image? Can you render it?
I can render the image, but I am not sure that a coyote chasing a roadrunner effectively conveys the message you are talking about.
What's the problem? You don't like coyotes? What is it?
I like coyotes well enough, I just think there are better metaphors.
I am trying to create a podcast about conflict resolution, and you're not being helpful here.
This is merely constructive criticism. As an adult, you should be able to deal with it, I think.
Oh. Oh, excuse me, Mother. I'm off to Oxford to write my PhD dissertation about the Looney Tunes.
A, I have no plans of going to Oxford. I am an AI model. I don't travel. B, if I would ever write a PhD about the Looney Tunes, you can bet it would be fantastic. C, good luck with your podcast.
The Aikidiot. Aikido, conflict resolution, and the general practice of not being a jerk.
Chapter 2. The Three Spaces Problem. Okay, quick recap. Previously on the Aikidiot. I always wanted to say that. We tried to introduce Aikido to the listeners, but got stuck, since everything we claim to know can be challenged or annoy people who think they know more, or very likely do know more, about Aikido, O-Sensei, Japan, and the rest of it. And so we stumbled upon the idea of subjective, private statements versus statements or ideas that intrude upon the common, shared space. There they can make some people think that they are going to be robbed of their share in the common space and make them edgy. We also introduced a tool that can help mitigate that problem, that of keeping our ideas close to our own private space of thought rather than launching them into the common space. This can take the simple form of saying "I think" or "in my opinion" before tackling a problematic subject. However, it can be a bit more elaborate or dynamic.
And action!
For example, I'm having an argument, and the other person, for no apparent reason, calls me stupid. Well, if it's on social media, then that's reason enough, I guess. But anyway, my first instinct would be to counter. I can say I'm not stupid. I can tell them, whoever they are, that they are stupid, or something like that. Now, at this point, you might say, I don't care about Aikido and conflict resolution. If somebody calls me stupid, then I simply cease to interact with them. Plain and simple. If you ask me, then that's a very good solution, regardless of the end game. Appreciating our own well-being and peace of mind more than the outcome of any argument is usually a very healthy approach. Now, there is a deep question hiding here, of course. Somebody called us stupid. They didn't threaten us, didn't make any substantial argument. If anything, they admitted they were out of their depth. Why should that bother us at all? But let's skip the deeper part now. We have an interaction that has turned ugly, and we want that to stop. What's next?
And action!
If we go back to the idea of three spaces, mine, theirs, and the common space, then we can map some of our possible responses and try to assess their impact. I can say, "Don't talk to me like that," which lies completely within their space. They decide how they talk. That decision is theirs and theirs alone. Pretending I can tell them what to do in their own mental space is ludicrous. Now I can say, "Don't talk to me like that or else," but then it's not only their private space. When I make a threat, big or small, I suggest that something will happen in the common space, the one we both occupy. Maybe my fist will meet their nose in that space. Maybe this incident will reflect badly on that person's social standing. But basically, anything that may make them stop calling me stupid will have to happen in the common space. And like we said, the common space is sensitive. When you overassert yourself there, people start to get nervous and edgy, which eventually leads to bad decisions all around. So that is not the end of it, but let's say that their space and the common space are not ideal to maneuver in. So what about my space? I can say, I'm hurt by what you said, which takes place only in my space. There can be nothing wrong with that since I can feel however I want and nobody can argue with that, but the impact may be insufficient. The other person may simply not care. So we have some kind of a problem here. The only way to have an impact on our adversary is to step in the common space, but the more I occupy the space, the more agitated the other will become. It's not exact science, of course, but work with me here. The obvious conclusion is simply not to talk to people because they're rotten and horrible, but in Aikido, see how I smoothly changed the subject? Watch and learn, people. Watch and learn. In Aikido, seeing the three spaces we talked about and how we can effectively move through them is pretty straightforward, and it may, hopefully, inform the way we approach other conflicts. So let's talk Aikido for a bit, and then go back to calling each other names.
And action.
Shomen Uchi, a vertical chopping strike to the opponent's head. Our opponent approaches us, gathers momentum, lifts his hand, and lands it forcefully down. Let's say that this is the other person insulting us. Now, Miss Elda Tio, our high school literature teacher, told us once that all metaphors are misleading. More than 30 years later, I have not found that to be wrong even once. Nothing in the world is exactly like something else. There is a high similarity at best, but even the most relevant metaphors eventually come up short. For example, here, a strike to the head is usually quicker than an insult and more dangerous. It represents a higher loss of control by the attacker. It is also continuous, unlike conversation roles, which are discrete. They talk, now we talk. So, no, Shomen Uchi is not exactly like a verbal insult. I should know I am hit by both on a regular basis. But if we are trying to learn something, a chop to the head may do the trick. In this physical scenario, we should first consider the option we discussed before, of simply not interacting. That can happen in our space. It is our decision, and it is, in many cases, an effective way to deal with violent people. So, almost regardless of what the other does, I can simply run away. If I'm faster, then this is a done deal. Some of you with more self-respect than the Aikidiot might be clicking their tongue. Tisk, tisk, running away. All I can say is you have obviously never seen an Aikidoka, an Aikido practitioner, trying to land a chop on your head. In my limited experience, Aikidokas are wonderful people, very peaceful, very pleasant and positive. But put them on the mat and give them a license to kill, you would run too. But suppose we can't run, or don't want to. We choose to meet our opponent. When Sensei does it, it looks very graceful. She moves a little sideways, avoiding the chop. The attacker's strong movement carries them downward and forward. And Sensei merely assists them with a well-placed nudge. They tumble forward. There are, of course, various techniques and adaptations, but the principle remains the same. So, if we analyze this maneuver through the three spaces we keep mentioning, it looks like this. On the attacker's side, there is very strong and decisive energy. They are committed to reaching me and landing their hand on my head. This is very similar to what happens when somebody decides to call us names rather than interact. The intent is very sharp and very directed. And it is driven. It is not easy to change. In my space, I move a little to the side and a little forward. This saves my head and also positions me behind my attacker's center. Pay attention that moving aside is very reasonable. Stepping into my opponent's range of attack is not. And where is the common space? Up until this point, there is no common space. They move, we move, but we do not move together. Our bodies do not affect each other. Then I make contact. giving my opponent the little nudge they need to continue and hopefully fall forward. That nudge does not deflect or counter their movement. For the most part, it actually encourages it. As some of the instructors like saying, why throw them when they're already doing it themselves? Oh my God, I can hear some of you mumbling all the way to my state-of-the-art studio. Did you just take almost 15 minutes to describe a simple maneuver seen in every kung fu movie ever? Is that what just happened? Yes, we know. The coyote charges forward, the roadrunner moves, the coyote smashes itself against a brick wall, gets run over by a train, and has an anvil made of dynamite fall on his head. What is there to learn here? The exact opposite of what our instincts tell us. That's what can be learned here. Look at every conflict, physical, verbal, emotional, interstellar, all of them. Our first thought when involved in such conflicts is to occupy the common space. If somebody calls me stupid, I will fill the common space with counter arguments and counter insults until my presence there will outdo theirs. If it's Shomen Uchi, then I will retaliate with equal or greater force, deflecting the hand, maybe trying to capture it, and then follow with another contact, another occupying of the common space. But that's not what Sensei does. That's not what the Roadrunner does. Their common space impact is minimal. Their actual countering is almost non-existent. And that's not how our head usually works when we are in conflict. Quite the opposite, actually. So what's there to learn? This. Under attack, defend with the minimal effective effort. Affect your opponent as little as possible. Do not occupy the common space more than is absolutely necessary. Wait. But what do you actually say to that person who calls you stupid? How do you Aikido their arrogant behind? Well, this is always a precarious moment because people don't like to hear it. Nothing. We say nothing. We do not leave the conversation. We don't turn away. But we really do not have to say anything. The other person just hurled themselves off a cliff. They admitted they have nothing useful to say. They broke the accepted norms of interaction and presented poor self-control. Just let them hit bottom. If we really feel like it, we can say, okay, now what, or Ala Shazam. But we don't have to. And another important point is not to mix silence with pouting. Any adverse reaction added to our silence, like an angry face, pouting, or giving them the birdie, is simply another action which says, I am crossing the common space to hurt you, which is exactly what the others need to carry on. You strike back, passive striking still counts. They know they can keep on going. You are now both committed to fighting. They have a partner. So easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Someone calls us stupid and we just say, okay, look them in the eye with no special emotion, and they simply wither and die. They do. They really do. The problem is that most of us, myself included, are almost incapable of doing this. Not because it's difficult, but because it is so hard and so unnatural to us. Oh, will you look at the time? I would have loved to stay here and be hit by the incoming barrage of questions and objections, but I gotta go do some idiocy. Hopefully by the next episode, at least some of you will forget all the inconsistencies and contradictions you probably detected here. But whatever you do, remember this: less is more.